This is another installment of the SNL podcast. I'm your host, just some guy named Jay. And in this one, we're going to talk about Kenan Thompson leaving SNL to start his own sitcom that'll be on NBC as well. And it's going to be produced by Lorne Michaels. But before I get into that, I want to just give a shout out to Mono Baggens. He has a hot new single out called On Fire. Check out the single and the music video in the info box below. His name is Mono Baggens, and the name of the single is called it's called On Fire. Check that out. All right, now before I really get into Kenan leaving, I basically want to talk about Kenan's current performance on the show. Kenan, I'm going to say he's one of the most improved SNL cast members. When Kenan first joined, I was excited to hear the news. Not saying that I thought he was going to be, some really great guy on the show, but I was just like, oh man. We grew up watching Kenan and Kel, and I was like, oh man, Kenan from Kenan and Kel is going to be a cast member on SNL. That's great. I thought it was great news. And I like it when SNL does that, when they get people from other sketch comedy shows, or they get people from sitcoms, or people who you've recognized and other things. I like it when SNL does that, instead of just getting straight up Second City people you never heard of. Get some people that got some television experience, some people that has some comedians that you've heard of prior to them joining the show. I like it when they do that. So yeah, I was excited hearing about that, especially since I come from that generation that grew up on those classic Nickelodeon shows like Goosebumps and all that, and Kenan and Kel, and all that other stuff. So yeah. Going back to Kenan being one of the most improved, when he did join the show, I was crossing my fingers. I was like, I hope he doesn't bring that Nickelodeon stuff here. I hope he don't think this is all that, and he's gonna start doing Super Dude and all these other things they used to do on Kenan and Kel and all that. And he actually didn't, but he was kind of goofy in his first couple of seasons. At least his first two seasons, kind of goofy. And he does mug the camera and do kind of little goofy faces now, but at least it's better than what he did when he started out, And then at one point, he just wasn't even that funny to me. Like at some point, I just kind of was like, Kenan's just on the show wasting time, because I don't think he's that funny or he's that good. But then, I don't know. I don't know when it happened. I think it was like, I want to say 2008 or 2009 maybe. Kenan was actually good. Like, he was actually fun to watch. He was actually funny in skits. His impersonations got better. Because usually Kenan was terrible at impersonations. He just kind of was just big and he wasn't good. But it's like the people that he does, he kind of almost sounds like him, or he's really going for that sound hard. So after a while, it's like I kind of was like, oh, Kenan's okay, and in this season, I just kind of got used to Kenan, like Fred Armisen, I feel like he's a little stale right now, and Seth Meyers, I feel like Seth Meyers, this show does need spicing up, and I think somebody else should be on Weekend Update right now. Seth is good, but make this his last year or something, because somebody else could do better. I would like to see another Norm, somebody that has that that Norm MacDonald kind of flavor to him. But getting back to Kenan, I kind of got used to Kenan. Like Kenan, even though he's been there as long as Fred and Seth, it's like Kenan is like, okay, he's kind of, I can live with that. I can live with Kenan being on the show for this year or a couple more years. It's kind of like he kind of morphed into a Tim Meadows. Although I think Tim Meadows is a better performer on SNL than Kenan is, it's like Kenan is like that guy. Like Kenan's like how Tim Meadows was. He could he's just that guy that just you know I think Tim Meadows is kind of like a white version of like Kevin Nealon and Chris Parnell and guys like that who can just kind of just play anybody. You know, they're just that. You know, they can play the cops, they can play the dads, they can play the teachers, they can play the lawyers. They just play. They're just in every little role, kind of keeping the show together. You know, and it seems like Kenan has become that guy. Like Kenan is not even like the token black guy. I mean, even though he is one of the token black guys, it's like Kenan is like a guy now. Like he's not there to be black. He's there to be Kenan, basically, you know. Jay Pharaoh, I still feel that he's there to be black. You know, he's there to do the impersonations of black people, and he's there to and to play kind of maybe slightly stereotypical like this kind of roles. But Kenan is just Kenan's playing doctors and lawyers and teachers and things like that, and he's just that guy. Like he's just that guy that's playing all the different type of roles, just kind of keeping the sketch going, as opposed to being the lead. And I'm used to that. I'm just getting used to that. But yeah, enough about me going on and on about that. People were kind of expecting a Kenan and Kel reunion. And I was crossing my fingers and hoping that, like Kel would do a walk-on SNL, like to do a walk-on and him and Kenan just like team up for a little quick skit. Not even a skit, but just something like a little sight gag just to make everybody scream and holler that, oh my God, it's Kenan and Kel, they're back. Because, us SNL fans, we're all in our 30s and stuff now. We're either in our late 20s or early 30s. We grew up on Kenan and Kel, and when we watch the show, we watch SNL, and we would love to see that, But after seeing these things on these blogs and all this stuff like that, it's saying that Kel Mitchell is saying that Kenan doesn't want to have anything to do with him. So I was trying to get some research on that. Kenan hasn't, released any statements or anything like that. But I've heard a lot of things about that. Now, it's all, all internet gossip and he said, she said. So nobody knows the truth exactly, other than Kenan and Kel themselves. But a common thing that's been coming up on the blogs is that Kel was on drugs and he was stealing money from Kenan. Don't know how true that is, but that has come up the most. Let's see. Another thing that kept popping up was that Kel was doing one of these straight-to-DVD videos, and they edited Kenan out of it. And Kenan didn't get his credit or something like that. I don't know, but that sounds kind of fishy, too. But that's something else that's been popping up. Another thing that they said that Kenan might have been jealous of Kel when they were on the come-up. And I think that's a stupid one because, I'm not saying that jealousy isn't a thing that doesn't, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm not saying it's not possible, but that seems like kind of childish. If you're jealous of somebody, I think Kel might have done something, But I don't think it's one of those things because a lot of people were saying that they thought that Kel was going to end up being the one to blow up, and Kenan wasn't. And I actually didn't think too far ahead on their careers. They kind of surprised me though a little bit because I thought Kel was going to turn out to be kind of like a over the top comedian type person that's on all these shows. Well, he kind of did. He kind of over the top, kind of flamboyant type of person. These characters that he plays on all these things. But I thought that he was going to kind of have these big kind of, not big movie roles, but at least have some kind of big movie roles under his belt. I thought he was going to end up being like an Orlando Jones, actually. Kel Mitchell. I really did think that. Like Orlando Jones was like hot for like 2 years. You know what I'm saying? It had like 2-3 good movies. And then that was it. I thought that was Kel Mitchell's fate right there. And Kenan actually surprised me because I thought Kenan was going to turn out to be like a serious actor for some reason. I just didn't think he was going to turn out to just like to stick with the comedy route. I thought he was going to switch it up and start doing more serious things and some cop dramas or something. And because it just seemed like I just thought Kenan was going to turn out to be like an actor. I mean, he is an actor, but I mean, I thought he was, I thought he was gonna go that route, And even when they were doing Kenan and Kel, when they were doing the show, it seems like Kenan was the straight man, and Kel was more like the comedic person. Like Kenan was the serious one. Like on the show, Kenan always had some kind of get rich quick scheme or some kind of thing, some kind of scam he always was trying to do. And he was always getting Kel involved, and here it go, and Kel would have to be dragged through it, and Kel would somehow mess it up, and Kenan, or something, Kenan would just get upset at Kel because he messed up the plan. But yeah, I mean, Kenan was real serious on Kenan and Kel if you think about it. I mean, he was always like mad and serious, but Kel was just like, Kel was the funny one. But yeah, I don't, some people were saying how would it have turned out if Kel was on SNL instead of Kenan. I think Kel is just too over the top and flamboyant. He's too Chris Kattan, and we already had Chris Kattan. I think Kel Mitchell would have been a black Chris Kattan, but probably less funnier. You know what I'm saying? If he was on SNL. I think he would be doing something similar to Mr. Peepers or jumping around, shouting, or playing gay characters and things like that. I mean, I don't know who's to say, because I mean, I didn't know Kenan would turn out to be decent, but I don't know. That's what I can imagine Kel doing that. But yeah, it's sad. I'm sad to hear that because I would like to see a reunion between the two. But I mean, hey, I get it is what it is. Oh, another thing that kept coming up was Kenan. They were saying that Kenan wanted to get away from his Nickelodeon persona and be looked at as an adult. But I mean, so does Kel. So I mean, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah, you're not wanting to mess with Kel on that. You guys could, But then again, like I said, nobody knows the whole story. Only Kenan and Kel know. Kel told his side of the story, but Kenan hasn't told his, and he may not. And who cares at the end of the day? I just hope that much success to Kenan. I'm kind of indifferent about him leaving the show because I actually got used to him. But like if he stays, he stays. If he goes, he goes. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Also, too, I think that this is also. I hope Kenan's show becomes successful. I mean, I don't know what it is yet, but I mean, just him leaving the show, I hope it ends up being successful, and I hope it don't turn out to be one of these Tracy Morgan type deals. Because I think Tracy Morgan, man, I think they just. Even though Tracy Morgan is on 30 Rock and things like that, and 30 Rock's in his last season, it seemed like. I don't know. It seemed like they wanted to get Tracy Morgan off the show, as opposed to just firing him. Because you know what I'm saying? Because he probably would have stayed on. He probably would have stayed on longer. Again, same thing with Kenan. Kenan probably would have tried to stay on like Darrell Hammond if it wasn't for this opportunity, for him to do his own sitcom. But I think that's what they did with Tracy Morgan. Like they just slapped together a show, knew it wasn't going to be successful. Put it on it was on some bad time slots, wasn't it? Like, how Family Guy was when it first came out? Like, Family Guy kept coming on at different times and different nights, and you didn't know when it was coming on, so nobody remembered to watch it, and that's why it got canceled at the first time, and then the DVD. So, well, we all know the Family Guy story. But it seemed like it was kind of the same thing with the Tracy Morgan show, too. It was like it was putting it on at oddball times, oddball days, or they'd put it up against another show that would beat the crap out of it, like Damon Wayans' My Wife and Kids or something. It was, I don't know, but yeah, I think the same thing might even happen to Kenan. They're going to put it on an oddball night. It's going to come on right out. It's going to come on during Monday Night Football or something, and it's good, and it might fail, and then and it's Kenan's gone. I hope not, though, because maybe this might be maybe Kenan might get to come back and host because it's sitcom. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what he does. All right, that's enough of me rambling on about Kenan. Definitely keep checking back for more updates and more reviews. As I get the news, I'll keep updating it myself. But I was mad late putting this podcast up, so you guys probably heard the news way before you clicking on this link. But before I go, I just want to say again, check out Mono Baggens. He's a hot new artist. He has a hot song out called On Fire. You need to listen to that. And definitely post your comments. Also post your comments about this podcast too. Your opinions on Kenan. Your opinions on Kel too. That's all I'd like to say. I'm just some guy named Jay. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.